Yo, what is good, everybody? It is your boy, Golden Falls, Golden What Ifs, whatever you want to call me, and I'm back. This is a brand new What If. What if Deku had a godly water quirk? And as always, if you guys enjoy the video, please be sure to leave a like, leave a sub, and leave a comment down below. All that good stuff. And I don't want to waste much more of your time because I want to get right into the video. So let's get it. This story begins with Izuku Midoriya, a little child around the age of 4 years old, on the beach with his mother. And he begins to walk out into the water, and his mother stumbles toward him and tells him, oh, be careful, like don't go too far, and blah blah blah. And as Izuku would step into that water, and as he would feel the water form around his feet, and as the water would begin to connect with Izuku's body, things begin to change, because the water all around him begins to surge. The water begins to completely splash and crash and cover him entirely. And Izuku's mother, Inko Midoriya, is freaking out, running over toward him, thinking that he's going to drown. He's going to be hurt. But that's not the case. Izuku is doing this subconsciously on his own, and Izuku can feel the water covering him entirely until it's just a bubble. Izuku looks back at his mother, and he's already deep within the water, or deeper than he would normally have gone. And he looks back and he waves toward her, and she's in shock. His quirk, it must be some sort of water-based quirk. But how did he get it? What's happening? I mean, it just showed up so soon, and it's so powerful. This is insane. Izuku's mother, or Inko, would go over toward Izuku and tell him to come back, to come over here, in which he does. He walks forward as the bubble would then go away, and the water would move out of its way for Izuku, and then allow him to walk straight out onto the shore. And this is absolutely shocking, excuse me. And Inko's thinking, whoa, like his quirk, his power might just be something completely different, something insanely overpowered, in which they immediately go to the doctors and they talk to the doctor about what his quirk does, what he could do. And there's a bit of an explanation of what he could do, what his quirk does, and stuff like that. But I mean, at the end of the day, all they really know is that it's some water-based quirk, and that's literally it. I mean, what else could they possibly know? What else could they possibly say? All they know, it's some water-based quirk, and that's it. And Izuku, well, as he goes throughout life and as he gets older and as he goes through middle school and elementary school and different things like that, Izuku would be preparing himself for whatever's to come. But he's always felt this connection to the water itself, and he's always felt like he should always be around there. The water is where he feels safe, the most safe, and really safe in general. And he would always go there every day after school. He would head over to the shores of Dagobah Beach, and he would walk the shores. He would go in through the water. He would do anything he could just to feel connected to the water once again. And he's one of those kids that would run out in the rain when it would begin to rain. If it rained, he'd be out there. He'd be running around, having fun. He'd be feeling the water droplets smack against his head, up against his face, and against his body, and he would really have a connection to the water itself. And Izuku would be preparing himself, well, to eventually go to UA High School and eventually try out for the UA entrance exam. But it all starts truly on one of the last days of middle school, when his teacher is telling everybody that he knows that they all want to be heroes, and they all want to be, next up and coming heroes. So he knows they all want to go that route, and none of them are going to get some regular job. In which, that's the truth. Izuku is one of those kids that wants to get into UA, but so is Katsuki Bakugo. And he begins to say that really the only person that should even try to go into UA other than himself would be Izuku, because nobody else really stands a chance. In which Izuku tells him, hey man, you don't gotta tell them that, that's not very nice, you gotta, sometimes you gotta pull it back a little bit, you know what I mean? You don't have to just completely just dismantle people and their hopes and dreams. In which he's like, okay, I hear you, but I mean, they're still, a bunch of losers and they're just not very strong. In which Izuku's kind of shakes his head. He goes, all right, I hear you. But, well, we could be nicer. You can be nicer. In which that's, of course, the case. And this time around, especially in this version, Izuku and Bakugo get along far better. Like, there's a lot more kind of friendship there between him and Bakugo, and Bakugo has massive respect for Izuku, and from time to time Izuku is having that opposite attitude and that opposite kind of personality helps with calming Bakugo's kind of insanity from time to time, right? There's time to time where Bakugo is just like, going off on people or doing this or saying this or kind of doing all these things, and Izuku's able to kind of keep him in check to an extent, at least to an extent, like I said. But at the end of the day, Bakugo is going to be Bakugo, so he's going to yap, he's going to get loud, he's going to get mad, he's going to yell, scream, threaten people. That's what Bakugo does. So nonetheless, yes, Izuku is keeping him a little bit more tame than anyone else would possibly know, but at the same time would still, kind of have that like Bakugo feeling where he's like angry and doing this and doing that and saying this and saying that, because that's what he does. Now, with all that said though, Izuku just is preparing for the UA entrance exam, and when he heads home that day, he's excited to just go off and get better and get stronger and hope that he can really just prepare himself even better for that exam. And what he wouldn't expect, though, is to run into something, run into someone, and run into kind of a villain of some sorts going underneath a literal kind of bridge where there's a manhole cover covering the sewers. Now, this villain would be the sludge villain. The sludge villain comes surging out trying to attack him, but Izuku would just halt him in place. It seems odd, but there is some leftover like sewage water and stuff like that. And honestly, the sludge villain is made up of partially water. So Izuku just halts him entirely, just stopping him from moving and basically telling him to relax, calm down, that there's no point in fighting, no point in trying to hurt people, that he could be a better person. He could do this, just be a better, person in general. But the sludge villain continues to struggle forward, continues to tell the kid that, no, he's going to take his body, he's going to blah, 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 he's going to do this. Which is like, he shakes his head and he's like, all right, man, I tried to give you the out. I tried to, help you out here. I tried to stop you from, doing something stupid, but you decided against it. So now you're going to have to deal with it. In which Izuku immediately would just blow up the sludge villain into little pieces and then would just go to walk away. Because he knows the sludge villain, this thing's probably was getting chased by someone, so they'll probably be able to handle it. But before he could even leave, well, All Might comes out of the sewer and he immediately is like, whoa, where'd the sludge villain go? In which Izuku points to the ground to say, like, yeah, that's where the sludge villain is. Which All Might's like, whoa, that's insane. Did you do this? In which Izuku says, well, hypothetically, if I did, will I be in trouble? And of course, All Might's like, no, you're not going to be in trouble with me. In which he basically says, yeah, I did it, but he's all right. He's made of sludge, so it'll be okay. In which All Might asks him some questions like, oh, how did you do it? Were you, how were you capable of doing it? And stuff like that. And Izuku kind of does a small explanation of what he's capable of, what he can do, and just kind of like what he's able to do with his water quirk. And which this is when, they're kind of like, whoa, or he's kind of like, that's pretty damn impressive, like really impressive. And he asks him like, what else could you do? And Izuku says like, well, there's a lot of things that I could do, but there's no guarantees with everything, right? There's no, like, he doesn't know for sure if he's able to do everything or do this or do that. Everything's kind of hypothetical right now because he's still training, he's still trying to work hard, trying to get stronger and stuff like that. So there's no guarantee with what he can do, but he's still training to the utmost height to try to get to whatever level he possibly can. And well, All Might helps clean up the sludge villain and they get it all settled and stuff like that into little bottles. And of course, All Might's like, you know what? I hope to see you very soon, kid, going to the UA entrance exam, because I think your potential is off the freaking charts, and I think your potential is beyond, what a lot of people could possibly imagine. And yeah, that's the case, right? Izuku's potential is insane, and the training for the UA entrance exam would finally be approaching, and Izuku would spend all of his time, literally all of his time, just at Dagobah Beach, working hard, training, trying to learn new ways of utilizing his quirk, from different kind of ways of attacking, different ways of strengthening his power, and he even decides to even hold a good little bit of water on him, kind of thinking like, you know what, there's a good chance I will need water to actually utilize. But Izuku does learn that he can utilize water to an extent anywhere. Like if there's the grounds nearby, he can sap water from that. If there's clouds full of water but it hasn't quite rained, or if it's raining, he can do that. If there's a big body of water or any water, he could even use it from his own body, but that's kind of iffy for himself. He doesn't really want to do that because that's kind of makes him more tired, makes him slower. But if he needs to, as a last resort, he could utilize water from himself and or utilize water from other people, which is a little bit interesting too. But that's something that he'll think about later. But he decides that he's gonna hold at least kind of like a jug of water, like a small jug of water on him, just to be utilizing for himself in the near future. And after a ton of training, he gets better in terms of utilizing a small amount of water, but he also gets better at utilizing a massive amount of water. He could basically make tsunamis if he wanted to, if he had enough water. He can, on top of that, make these types of rain, or kind of this raining purification that allows him to basically summon a rainstorm that should allow him to heal people, weaken people, and really help people out. But he hasn't really truly figured out all of the quote-unquote healing abilities involving his powers, but it's something that's going to be a point of contention very, very soon. Now, with all that said and done, the UA entrance exam will finally be upon us, and the UA entrance exam will be the first chance he gets to show off the powers he is truly capable of. And those powers, well, they're pretty damn impressive, more impressive than he personally even thought in the first place, because Izuku would eventually, finish up his written portion of the exam, but the main thing that he'd be getting to is the practical. And him and his tiny little water jug, like a tiny water jug, begins to slice through a ton of these robots. And yes, it's very impressive, but in a natural state, Izuku isn't the fastest person in destroying all of these robots. But at the same time, I mean, if he had a large body of water, it would be super, super easy for him to just easily just destroy these things, like destroy these robots and just obliterate them to nothingness. But of course, that's not the case right now. He doesn't have a large volume of water on him, but being able to slice through them is pretty simple. He basically just embeds them with water, or kind of gets water within them and just implodes them. It's that simple. Like, he just basically explodes them, and it's very basic. And he tries his best to kind of get to like the oil and stuff like that within the robots, but it's kind of difficult to get to it, and it's kind of difficult to get to those aspects of the robot. So it's not the easiest thing in the world, but at the end of the day, he's able to destroy a ton of robots, just not enough to get the number one. And this would eventually lead him to actually facing off with a 0-point robot as well, trying to protect somebody. And Izuku, well, he would run over, pushing all the rubble off of a girl by the name of Ochako, and he would immediately think like he has to do something, but it's going to make him extremely tired, in which he's running out of water, so he does sap it from his own body, which actually in turn is stronger than normal. But Izuku basically does make water within his body a lot quicker, but it still makes him tired and still makes him basically dehydrated and stuff like that. So he basically sends this spiral of water to the giant robot, knocking it over, and in turn saving the girl that needed help. Now, after doing all that, Izuku got quite a bit of points. I mean, he's just not quite there in terms of the number one student, because he just didn't destroy that many robots. I mean, he destroyed quite a bit, don't get me wrong, but he just didn't destroy that many robots. Now, with all that said, though, they then finish off the practical portion of this UA entrance exam, and then it's all said and done for Izuku Midoriya in terms of preparation to getting to that next portion of what he wants to get to, aka the next portion being that of UA High School. And going off from the UA entrance exam to UA High School would only take maybe about a week. And once they head off and once they go to the UA High School for the first time, Izuku enters and he is greeted by quite a few different people that possibly saw him at the entrance exam, or people like Bakugo who like actually know him, in which is of course cool to see, sort of. Bakugo is somewhat respectful and stuff like that, but the first true thing that he's going to be tested on is actually this so-called kind of quirk assessment that Aizawa sets up. And the thing that actually is a little bit tough is that he's not amazing at anything. He's kind of middle of the pack at almost everything. Now, don't get me wrong, he's not weak. He's not weak by any means, but at the same time, he's kind of lacking in a lot of the physical attributes, and he has to really utilize a ton of water if he really wants to do things properly, right? And that's something that is brought up. And he tells Aizawa that he gets it if he's not going to allow him to be by a large body of water or something like that, because that's not necessarily realistic. Like, you're not always going to be in that circumstance. So he understands that would not be the case. And Aizawa says, you know what, how about this? We're going to have you do it normally, see where you're at. And then we're going to go and have you retested by a ton of or by a body of water of some sorts. And when they do this, I mean, Izuku gets around middle of the pack, like I said, for the first part. But the second time he tests, I mean, he blows everybody out of the water. Well, no pun intended. Well, I kind of pun intended. Now, he blows everybody out of the water because his strength is so much stronger when he is around a body of water. He's able to throw the ball further. He's able to be, like I said, stronger. He's able to be quicker. He's able to be all these things. And he just shows off, and he would technically have gotten the first in the exam or first in the quirk assessment if this was his first time actually, testing. But Izuku tells them that he understands that this isn't realistic, that being around a body of water isn't always the most realistic thing. So he'll take his previous score of like 12 or something, right? It's like 12th place or something, maybe even lower, maybe a tiny bit lower, but around like 12, maybe to 15. And Izuku knows that this is kind of like, the reality of what he can do, at least without proper things. And I mean, even if he had like a couple jars of water, he would have done even better. But he didn't have that on him. He didn't really think about actually having that on him at that moment. But of course, Aizawa honestly is still pretty impressed by this. I mean, a student that understands his limitations and a student that understands that not every single like circumstance is going to be to his benefit is someone that is going to be a ridiculously good hero in the near future. And it's something that, well, a lot of heroes and a lot of different heroes, a lot of people need to truly understand themselves, because if they don't, well, they could fall short in the eyes of becoming a hero as well. But Izuku, on the other hand, he already has figured that part out. And when Izuku, well, gets his chance to actually show off his powers against actual people in the next up-and-coming training, which would be heroes versus villains, of course, it would be insane. Because Izuku shows off something that many people thought he would not even think about doing. And many people would think that, oh, no, that's not something he would actually do or something that he would actually decide to do. But it's something that is pretty damn scary when you put it into perspective. And that's, well, the ability to utilize the water in other people. Now, the Heroes versus Villains training is involving, well, mainly two things, right? The Heroes versus Villains training has, well, for starters, Izuku facing off against Katsuki Bakugo and Tenya, excuse me, sorry about that. Katsuki Bakugo and Tenya Ida, and also has basically with Ochaku Uraraka, and when they go off and they face each other, when Izuku is the hero team and Bakugo and them are the villain team, of course, we get a pretty damn interesting situation, because when Izuku enters that area and Bakugo comes surging in, he tells Izuku that without that water left over, he'll stand no chance. But then Bakugo begins to feel something. He begins to feel dehydrated, and then he begins to feel that he can no longer move. He gets planted into the ground, and Izuku is holding him still as they run by. Izuku tells him that there's water everywhere, even water within your body, in which Bakugo is pissed. But at the same time, he's kind of impressed, but he's also pissed. And he tries to get up, but he's exhausted, tired, all of these things, and he realizes, like, damn, what did he just do to me? In which this would lead them to facing off with Tenya, and about the same exact thing would still happen. Tenya would be put down pretty damn quickly, and, well, very, very fast. Before you possibly even know it, Tenya would be out of the fray as well, out of the fight as well, and it would be over for the villains, and the hero team would win, and Katsuki Bakugo would fall short against, well, Izuku Midoriya, which is pretty damn insane, because Bakugo felt like he had the advantage here, but the fact is, he really didn't. The fact is, he actually did not have the advantage he really thought he would have, and he falls short once again when facing off with Izuku Midoriya. But here's the thing. There's so much more to do, so much more to come, and especially when they go to the USJ, a rescue facility that they're going to be training at, but a training exercise turned into a villain invasion is something that many would not have expected. But Izuku, well, let's just say they would put him in a wrong spot, at least if you were the villains trying to actually win, because the villains would show up, Kurogiri and portals would open with Shigaraki and all of them. But guess what? Once that happens, once all of that occurs, and once, guess what? Once Kurogiri starts teleporting everyone everywhere, Izuku goes into one place that they really shouldn't have put him. And that is a large body of water. Because he falls into the water and he realizes, oh, they have messed up. Because he sits there and he realizes quickly that whoever gave them this information, whatever trader, whatever person, however they found this out, they left out a lot of information that really should have been told to their villain little empire, because this is not the spot that he should have landed and not the spot that they should have put him. Because when the villains begin to show up within the water and try to attack Izuku, and Izuku starts moving better and quicker than them and starts beating them senseless within the water, they are shocked to see this and they're terrified. Asui is watching from above as Izuku basically knocks out and takes out all the villains, and then he would jump up, basically having the water path them away, and he tells Asui and Mineta to grab on and that they're going to get out of here, in which he grabs both of them as he basically surfs them all the way across to land, and Izuku says to basically go over there and hide behind that kind of like stone block thing that they have nearby. And he tells them to hold their breath if they need to, but they should be okay. In which he puts like a bubble around them, and then immediately would make it so all the water, or a ton of the water at least, would begin to surge out and make a tsunami of some sorts, wiping out legitimately all of the villains that are there, at least the villains that, are like lower level villains, like not the Nomu and stuff, but knocking out all the villains across the entirety, literally across the entirety of the USJ, and all the hero, or all the students, and Aizawa and, Pro Hero 13 and stuff like that are shocked. All these villains are knocked out in one foul swoop, and Izuku, well, he still has water all over the place. And this is when Shigaraki, Kurogiri, and also the Nomu are forced into the fight a lot earlier than they would have thought, and Izuku will then watches as the Nomu tries to attack Aizawa. But immediately, Izuku tries to help out Aizawa, getting him out of harm's way and moving him, trying to move him out of the way of the Nomu so that the Nomu doesn't absolutely just destroy him. Now, I will say this, it doesn't help a ton, right? The Nomu still catches the leg of Aizawa and it breaks it, breaking Aizawa's leg. And Izuku, well, he tries to think of something, tries to help him, getting some of the water he has, getting him out of harm's way, and immediately trying to basically stop this Nomu from attacking anyone else. And that's what he does. He stops the Nomu from attacking quite a bit of people and stops the Nomu from basically just continuing this absolute onslaught he was going to basically do upon Aizawa. And he gets him out of the way and stops the Nomu and begins to kind of see if the Nomu has like water within him, hoping that he can just halt the Nomu entirely. But he can to an extent. He can't really like halt the Nomu full on, but he can to an extent. And he begins to try his best to like do something, right? He tries his best to slow him down or do something. But the thing is, right now, Izuku doesn't have the ability to really just destroy the Nomu the way he wants to. And just as he's thinking that he's not going to be able to really slow this guy down any longer, he finally realizes something. He finally realizes that All Might has now arrived. And when All Might arrives, Izuku has an idea of something he's been working on for a while. And something he's been trying to basically work with for a while as well. In which immediately, when All Might arrives, he begins to start having all the water float up into the air. And everyone's in shock. What is happening? I mean, the only villains that are left are Shigaraki, Kurogiri, and the Nomu. And this is when everyone is in complete and utter awe, because those two villains are immediately covered in a bubble of water, unable to actually move, and are slowly but surely passing out from the lack of oxygen. But on top of that, it begins to rain. Yes, it's raining indoors, which is kind of odd, and everyone's very confused about it. But then they realize something. This isn't normal rain. They feel stronger. They feel better. They feel more kind of entwined, right? They feel less exhausted. All of the above, which is kind of interesting and kind of wild when you put it into perspective. Because how is this happening? But on top of that, the water, the rain, this heavenly rain is helping them, is making them feel better, is making them stronger, is weakening the villains, but also it's healing them. Any injuries that they have, it's healing them. And All Might, as he fights, feels like he's getting stronger and stronger and stronger, which is all the reason why is because of that rain. And the fight, well, would go quicker than you could think, because eventually they would fall, or the villains would fall, and well, Shigaraki and Kurogiri would be out cold, ready for the heroes to arrive to capture them entirely, lock them away, and never let them out again. In which this is insane, because Izuku, well, he would then eventually kind of collapse a little bit and be exhausted, saying that he needs water, he needs something right now, because he is damn freaking tired. In which immediately they get everybody out of there, and immediately Izuku would get rehydrated and stuff like that, which is always good. And it's honestly good for him to push his quirk the way he did, because the more he does that, the more he'll start understanding his limitations and so on. Now, with all that said, though, Izuku has helped and did help quite a bit during this circumstance. But on top of that, we now know something that they didn't know in the first place. And that is that his heavenly rain, his ability, to an extent, his ability is now allowing him, or does allow him, to legitimately heal people. And this is shown, well, with All Might, because All Might himself would eventually admit to Izuku days after this happened that he had a really bad injury, a really bad one. And then he lifts up his shirt to show that the injury is like halfway, if not like 75% of the way healed. in which Izuku asks him, like, I mean, the injury's still there. Like, you still have an injury. But immediately All Might's like, no, this used to be 50% worse, at least. In which he tells him whatever he did healed him. He doesn't know how. He doesn't know, like, you know, exactly how it occurred, what occurred, and what the explanation of it is. But he healed him. He helped him. And he was able to basically heal him from an injury that was determined to basically destroy his ability to work as a hero. And that right there is something that is insane to think about, because Izuku basically saved basically All Might from actually being at a point where he wouldn't have been able to legitimately be a hero anymore. He would literally not be able to be a hero anymore. And this put him at a better state. This put him at a point where he could genuinely still be a hero. He could genuinely still be the hero he wants to be. And that is 100% the case. Izuku Midoriya has given an opportunity to All Might that he never expected himself to have. He never expected himself to actually have the ability to truly still be the hero he wants to be. And he asked the kid, could he still heal him? Could he still do something? Could he still, like, fully heal him? In which Izuku says, maybe. But we're going to have a talk about that a little later. We have a lot to prepare for, and that includes the UA Sports Festival, And that's something Izuku has to prepare for, and something that he's excited for, but at the same time, like, come on. It's going to be difficult for him, especially with any lack of water. So yes, he goes into the UA Sports Festival with high hopes, but he's not expecting himself to just clean house and win easily. But that's really the case until he's told that he's allowed to carry with him a basically enough water for every single time, right? So, like, every single event he goes into, he'll have a new thing of water. And that right there is like, oh, you know what? That's really helpful. So the obstacle course race, it's not too difficult for Izuku. Izuku is able to utilize some of the water to basically make himself quicker and make himself slide across different areas a lot easier, but he still doesn't, you know, get some insane score, or he might get first place, but it's not by, like, a lot. He'll, like, barely get first place. Like, he just gets it, and everyone is kind of like, whoa, like, that was pretty insane. But I mean, he basically would barely get it. He would, just like in normal, he would barely get first place. Now, the cavalry battle, with the water he has, and also his ability to halt people with the water within their body, I mean, that makes it easy work for the cavalry battle, and easy for dealing with certain people and certain people's like powers and strengths and weaknesses. And funny enough, those would be the two hardest kind of events for Izuku. At least the first one would be, like, the hardest one for him to just make sure to keep up and make sure to, you know, go along. Now, in terms of 1v1s, I mean, this right here is where he does his best work. Because when he faces off with Shinso, and he learns that, you know, obviously he just doesn't have to talk to him or can't talk to him, he basically utilizes the water within Shinso's body and shoves him straight off of the area. And this is a pretty big kind of flag for someone like Todoroki, who's about to face him next. And he realizes, like, okay, I have to make sure I'm careful with the way I approach things, because if I'm not, I might just get shoved off this kind of podium or this stage before you could possibly even know it. And of course, Izuku is preparing himself for whatever he needs to prepare himself for, and he immediately would prepare for the ice coming from Todoroki. And this would only be in the benefit of Izuku, because he'd be able to actually manipulate the ice itself, every bit of it that Todoroki is utilizing, and he would turn it into water itself and push Todoroki straight off. Now, this is when Todoroki will be able to save himself just briefly. And Izuku asks him that if is he afraid to use his fire side because he's utilizing water? I mean, he lacks so much in water, but why not combine both ice and fire? It might help him out a little bit more. I mean, the fire is probably going to be better against his water than just giving him more water through ice. In which, of course, Todoroki basically shuts this down, saying that that is not his quirk. The ice is truly a part of him, but the fire is his father's. In which Izuku shakes his head and says that is your quirk, Todoroki. That is. The fire that is within you, the fire that you can use, and the fire and ice that you can put together is your quirk. But Izuku would then create a giant wave of water from the ice that was created, and he tells Todoroki that if he doesn't want to use it, he doesn't have to. But he'll be regretting it because he's going to lose right now. Izuku sends a tsunami of some sort right at Todoroki and immediately would smack him straight into a wall, as Todoroki would try to save him with ice, but Todoroki would try to save himself with ice, but would be unable to do so. And Izuku would be looking at him, shaking his head, as out of nowhere, Izuku would be within the water and on the ice and smack him with a kick, sending him right outside of the stage, or right outside of kind of like the area that they're fighting in. And Todoroki's in shock. How did he do that? He didn't even know he could do that. And when Izuku would shrug his shoulders and tell him that he never really stood a chance in the first place, because, well, that fire would never have worked, but he was just giving him more and more fuel, the more and more ice that was sent his way. And Izuku Midoriya, I mean, he would absolutely destroy the rest of the people there. I mean, yes, he would take down Tenya pretty easily, and same thing with Bakugo, and this would even frustrate Bakugo to an extent, but it's hard to, be upset when you were beaten fair and square, and you were given the opportunity to fight the person that continues to defeat you over and over and over again. So yes, he is pissed, yes, he is angry, yes, he is mad, and yes, he is giving a little bit of a temper tantrum, you could call it, but he knows that he was beaten because Izuku was better, and it's that simple. He can't get around that. He can't complain about that, and he understands that he was better, or Izuku was better, and he has to fall on that sword. And Izuku Midoriya would be the first person, or the first place, aka the winner of the UA entrance exam, and or the UA Sports Festival. Sorry about that. I don't know why I keep saying that. The UA Sports Festival. And he would be the winner in something that originally would have been a little bit more difficult if he wasn't given a little bit of water here and there so that he could actually utilize it like other people, right? Like how other people utilize their own quirks. Now, with all that said, those first two portions of the UA entrance or the UA Sports Festival, oh my goodness, I keep saying it, I apologize. The UA Sports Festival would have been the harder parts, and then he cleaned up the end of it, and he cleaned up the one-on-ones, and he was able to defeat those people and those, the people that he had to face off with, and this would get him a ton of people wanting him to come to his internship, or to their internship. And one person that would really catch his eye, and it was because of, one person that would definitely put in a good note for him, and that would be Sir Night-Eye. Sir Night-Eye would be wanting an internship with Izuku Midoriya because of All Might. And it all starts because All Might and Izuku would head off to Sir Night-Eye's agency with the acceptance, and, they would watch kind of a reconciliation between All Might and Sir Night-Eye. And they would shake hands to an extent, even if, of course, Sir Night-Eye doesn't agree with everything that All Might has been doing, or All Might does. But there's one thing and one reason why they're here, because Izuku tells them that he's going to take All Might to the ocean, or he's going to take him to the beach, Dagobah Beach, and they're going to do something. And he feels that Sir Night-Eye will want to be there. So they head off to Dagobah Beach, and he tells All Might to walk within the water. Walk within the water and embrace it. Do not resist it. Fall within the water. You will not be hurt. You will not, suffocate. You will not, you'll be able to breathe. You'll be all right. In which he tells him that everything that you know now, you have to do the opposite. Because normally people try to swim to the surface, but you have to let yourself fall to the bottom. In which that's what All Might does. Walks out there and Izuku follows closely. And Sir Night-Eye, watches in a little bit of panic. And he's hoping that he'll be all right. He's emerged into the water and Izuku emerges with him. And a bubble would conform, but All Might's entire body would light up with basically this light, but it would be like a weird like a immersion of light that would be happening within the water, and Izuku would be healing All Might, and after 30 minutes they come out, and Izuku tells him to lift up his shirt just a little bit to see that what happened to his absolute horrible injury, and they look, and it's gone, and Sir Night-Eye is in shock. How did he do it? That's insane. Your power can do so much. Your power could heal thousands, tens of thousands, millions. In which Izuku nods his head and says that he will. He will heal as many as he possibly can. And maybe one day, there will be no sickness. There will be no hunger. There will be no anything. There will be no hurting. There will be no, horrible things happening to good people. Maybe they'll be able to save so many lives, more than you could imagine. But for now, he's still learning. He's still a kid, and he's still pushing forward. And he shakes All Might's hand, shakes Sir Night-Eye's hand, and Sir Night-Eye tells him that he has a place in his agency anytime he wants it. In which Izuku says that he only wants it if he deserves it. And he asks Sir Night-Eye, does he truly believe he deserves it? Or is he doing this as a favor to All Might? In which Sir Night-Eye shakes his head, says he deserves it. You deserve it, kid. He says you are exceptional in what you can do, and having you around, it will definitely be good for my agency. And this is when Izuku will start working with Sir Night-Eye, working with Mirio, working with Bubble Girl, and basically maintaining a friendly repertoire with all of them, right? Every single one of them. And really, Bubble Girl is kind of smitten by Izuku. I mean, it kind of fits the mold, because obviously Bubble Girl and Izuku is basically have the powers of, godly water, or even you can even call him an aqua deity to an extent. And Izuku is basically showing off all of these powers, training with a bunch of them. But as one good thing comes, a bad thing would occur, because soon they would get a phone call, and that phone call would be from UA High School. And that phone call would be from about one person, Tenya, Ida. Izuku would be sent away, sent back to UA. He tells them all that they'll see each other very soon. And Mirio tells him that he'll see him at school. And they'll be chatting further, definitely more than you can imagine. And they would go off, and he would head off back into class, enter, sit down, and he would learn that Tenya Ida was extremely hurt in battle. In which Izuku would immediately stand up and ask Aizawa, where is he? Where is he? In which Aizawa says, whoa, kid, chill out, right? Like, but Izuku cuts him off. Where is he? I can heal him. I can help him. I just need to be where he's at. I need to get him to the beach. In which everyone's in shock. Are you serious? You can do that. In which Izuku says, yes. Don't ask him how. But how he knows, he just knows. I can do it. In which Aizawa basically cancels class and gets Izuku and heads off. And basically Izuku's headed off to basically save Tenya Ida's life. And he would immediately get there and see his parents there and other people too. And he would tell them that they need to get Tenya to the beach right now. In which they would ask him why. I mean, if they leave here, who knows how long he'll survive? In which immediately Izuku takes a ton of the water from like the jugs he has and the water around, and he would then cover Tenya in this water, and he would tell him that he'll last as long as he needs to last until he gets to the beach. In which immediately Aizawa tells them that they need to trust the kid, like now, because Tenya will be here for the rest of his life doing nothing, just being basically stuck here in a hospital in a coma if they don't listen. The doctors look around wondering, what should we do, blah, blah, blah. And then the parents of Tenya, they decide, you know what? you're right. Let's do it. Whatever you have in mind, we trust you. And they trust Aizawa mainly because they don't really know Izuku, but they trust Aizawa being that he's a hero, and they head off to the beach. As they arrive, Izuku would take Tenya within the water with him, and as they would submerge themselves within the water, the bubbles would begin to form, or bubbles around, light begins to glimmer all around, and they stay beneath for 30 to an hour and a half, 2 hours. Parents begin to panic, saying they have to get him out of there. Well, he's gonna die, but Aizawa tells them, don't worry, the kid has it handled, I promise. 3 hours would go by, and eventually they would arrive, or they would arise. They would come out of the water, and Tenya would be standing, and he would be fully healed. No injuries, no nothing, not a single thing. In which Izuku would emerge as well, and Izuku would tell them that it went well. The ocean is happy, right? The ocean is happy to help, and the ocean really is connected to Tenya as well. In which they walk out, and Tenya's in shock, hugging his parents, and they're just in disbelief. Like, what just happened? What occurred? Like, I mean, seriously. And they question him and all this stuff. And Aizawa pats the kid on the back, and he says that this right here, this is more than any final exam. This right here is more than anything that they could think of. In which Izuku looks at him and says, does that mean I don't have to take my final exam? Like, did I already pass? In which Aizawa looks at him and smirks a little bit and nods his head and says, yeah, I think you're good, kid. I think you're good. Just make sure to pass the written portion, please. In which Izuku nods his head and says he'll get right to studying, as he pats Tenya on the back and says that he has to get going. But as he's about to leave, the mother of Tenya would hug him and thank him for saving her child. And Izuku says, well, that's just what a hero needs to, and also what a hero does. So, no reason to thank him, truly. He heads off and goes back to UA, goes back to his home, and just studies up, gets prepared, and he finishes his final exam, or his written portion of the final exam, and he watches as his classmates and his teammates and everybody else takes on their practicals, and he watches closely as everybody goes through their practical exams, and he prepares himself for the training that they're going to go through in the near future at the forest training camp. Because the forest training camp is only one bus ride away and one push off a cliff away. So Izuku Midori is preparing himself and prepared for some of the best and also the most worthwhile training he has ever gone through. But for now, that is where we're going to end off What If Deku Had a Godly Water Quirk. And this was part 1 of 2, of course. And if you enjoyed, please show some love. Leave a like, leave a sub, and leave a comment down below. All that good stuff. And yeah, that's all I got to say. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I hope all y'all have an amazing day. Later.